Hey guys, it's Dan here from Pixelfix and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Laravel's many-to-many relationship. We're going to basically introduce the feature sales leads with tags into our current API that we're busy developing. Alright, so to prepare for this episode, I've gone ahead and created a few things. I've set up the routes that we will need. I've gone ahead and created the controller and set up the update and the store methods. I've also created some form requests that we would require. I've also set up a custom validation rule. The custom validation rule will basically just check whether we provide the correct tag in our request. So basically what we're going to do in this episode is to create the pivot table and set up the relationships between the two models. Okay, so let's start by looking at the sales leads table. Now, as you can see, I've deliberately called it sales leads. I also went ahead and created the sales tags table and called it sales tags. Now, the reason for this is because most of the time you'll see a table name with a single word. And sometimes when you see a table name with multiple words and you need to create the pivot table, it can get a little bit confusing as to what you need to name your pivot table. So in this example, I will show you exactly what you need to do when you come across a situation where you have multiple words in the table name. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our migration. You'll see in a second why I'm naming it this way. So we'll also pass in the create flag, and now this is where we specify our table name. So in Laravel, the convention is you take your table names, you make them singular, and you place them together in alphabetical order. In our case, our table would be called sales lead, and then we'll link the table with the second one, which would be sales tag. And as you can see, the sales lead is the singular version of our sales leads table, and sales tag is the singular version of our sales tags table. Okay, so now if we look at our migration, we can see this is the table that's going to be created. Okay, so what we need to do next is to add the ID fields into the migration, and we'll use the foreign ID, which then the first foreign ID would be sales lead ID, and we can say we want to constrain it and cascade on delete. And the second field we want would also be a foreign key, and we'll just name it sales tag ID. All right, so let's save our file, and now we can run our migration. PHP artisan migrate. Awesome, our table has been created. Okay, so let's head over to our sales lead model and set up our relationship. Let's create a public function, and we'll call it tags. And then the relationship we want to return is, because this is a many-to-many relationship, and a many-to-many relationship means that your lead can have multiple tags, and a single tag can belong to multiple leads. So what we need to return is the belongs to many relationship, and then what does it belong to? Sales tag class. So now you can also pass extra parameters into this method. But if you follow naming conventions as Laravel specifies, you don't need to. These extra parameters are only there if you did not follow naming conventions. Let's say, for example, we didn't call our table sales lead sales tag. Let's say we didn't do that. We called it lead tag. And because the lead tag table name does not correspond to our sales lead model and our sales tag model. Now this is where we can take this name and basically pass it in as the second parameter. So if you open it up, you'll see the second parameter would then be the table name you want to specify. But because we followed naming conventions, we can basically remove this and rely on the convention. Okay, so let's head over to our sales tag and set up the relationship from this side. Again, we will call a public function and we'll call it leads, and we'll return, because this is a many-to-many relationship, again, we return the exact same relationship belongs to many, but in this model, the many-to-many relationship is on the sales lead class. All right, so as I mentioned before, I've already set up the route and the controller method called store, and I've also set up a lead service, which is a service class I use in order to do the business logic of storing and updating the lead. All right, so let's look in the store method of our service class and hook up the store method. All right, so what we'll do is we'll assign the lead to a variable and we'll call the sales lead model and the create method, and then we'll pass in the required fields, which would be title, and we'll get that from the sales lead details under title, and oops, sorry, it should be a comma, and our other required field would be message. Okay, and that would create our lead. All right, so let's quickly look at the store sales lead request to see what other fields are required for the tags. All right, so I've specified that the tags needs to be a required field and it needs to be an array. And the reason for this is it'll allow you to add multiple tags in one go. And as you can see, each array value needs to pass this custom rule validation. And this custom rule is basically just a rule to specify that's the only values we can pass in as a tag. Okay, so in order for us to utilize this, we need to extract the tags from the sales details and we'll place it in a collection. So it'll be sales details, and the key that we're going to use is tags. Now, in order for us to use the relationship, we'll need to modify the tags in order for it to have a key value pair, because currently it'll be in the format of something like new, and it'll be phone, etc. So we need to manipulate that array so it will have a key value pair of, for instance, name, like so. Right, so in order for us to do that, we can use the tags method, and because this is a collection, we can call the map function on it, and the map method requires a function, and we want to extract the item, and we want to assign this to a new variable. Let's call it formatted tags, and we want to return a new array with name as the key and item as the value. All right, so now what we can do is we can use the lead that's been created, and we can call the tags relationship, and then we can chain the create many method, We use the create many method because we are formatting this to be an array, because we expect there can be either one or many tags passed into the request. So that's why we'll use the create many, and then we'll just pass in our formatted tag variable. All right, and now we can just return the lead that was being created. Let's clean this up. Okay, and if we go back to the sales controller, sales leads controller, we'll see the lead is being passed back into this variable, and we send it back through the API using a sales lead resource. All right, so let's customize the sales lead resource to only return the fields we want it to send. Okay, so the first field we want to send back is the ID, and we can access it via this.id. The second field is the title of the lead, and we'll call it this.title. And the next one is the message, which is this.message. And what else? And we want to send back the tags that's been created. Now, because this is a relationship, we can just call it with this tags. But we also want to utilize the tags collection. Because this is being sent back as a collection, we can send it back as a new sales tag collection and pass it in. All right, so let's head over to Postman and see how this works in action. All right, I should already have some fields pre-filled. All right, so the required fields would be the title, the message, and I've added two tags as array fields, new and phone. So if we send, and there we go. The lead has been created with lead number 1, the message, and then the tags. And then you can see there's an array of tags being returned. Now, as you can see, we didn't customize the tag resource, so that's something we can do, as we don't necessarily want to see all this information. So we can go back to VS Code and customize our tag resource. Okay, so instead of returning the default, we can just return the array with an ID, this.id, and we can say we want the name, which would then be this.name. Okay, so let's head back over to VS Code, refresh, and there we go. Nice and simple with the ID and the name. Okay, so if we head back to VS Code and in our service class, we'll just do a quick recap. So we got the lead by creating it with the required fields. Then we took the tags and used the tags relationship on the lead to create the actual tags in the database because they didn't exist. And with the tags relationship, it automatically assigned these new tags to the lead. That's why we could see them in Postman. Okay, so this would work well if you want to create the actual tag while you create the lead and do the association. But most of the times, you would already have a list of tags and you only want to attach them or associate them with the lead. Now we can do this in the update method. So what we'll do is we'll take the lead, which would be automatically injected for us through route model binding. We can then call the tags relationship, and then on the tags we can call the attach method and then pass in the sales lead details and the tags. We also want to return a new sales lead resource and then pass it in the sales lead. All right, so let's head over to Postman to see this in action. Okay, so I've set up a route where we can send the tags as an array, and the values will need to be numerical because we're going to use the IDs in order to attach it to the lead. We don't want to create the tag in this case, so we don't need the name, just the IDs. So if we send the information, okay, so as you can see, we've updated lead ID 1 with these 3 tags. Now, the problem with using attach is the following. If you send the same data again, it's basically just going to add it on to the lead. It doesn't check whether the same tags has already been attached or assigned to the lead. It'll just add them regardless. Okay, so let's head back over to VS Code and I'll show you how we can fix this. So instead of using the attach method, we can use the sync method. And then what we'll do is, as a second parameter, we'll pass in false. Now, as you can see, it specifies the false, or the second parameter will be detaching. Detaching means that it'll detach all the IDs that is not present in this array. For example, if we previously attached ID 1, 2, and 3, and if we want to update this and we only pass in ID 1 and 2, then ID 3 will automatically be detached. So you'll end up with a lead with only tags 1 and 2 assigned. That's why we pass in the false, which means that it will not automatically detach. Okay, so let's head over to Postman to see this in action. So now if we send it, we'll see we get IDs 1, 2, and 3. And if we send the same information again, it's still just ID 1, 2, and 3. And now let's change this and we send tag 4. And basically it only adds ID 4. And that's basically how you can do an update and use the tags relationship in order to add or associate tags. All right, I think that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. If you like this video and you found it useful, please do me a favor and give it a like. Consider subscribing, as it would really help me out to bring you more content in the future. Until the next episode, guys.